Looking back at the events that led to the murder of Sarah Everard.
Caught on the dash cams of a number of passing vehicles, these are chilling images. The flashing hazard lights of PC Wayne Couzens' hire car parked on the verge. Then suddenly, a side view. It's grainy video, but this is Sarah Everard talking to Wayne Couzens. She's been stopped by a man she should have been able to trust. But Couzens abused his position as a serving Metropolitan Police officer, tricking the 33-year-old into thinking she'd done something wrong. It's hard to make out, but the figure sitting in the back seat of his car a short time later is Sarah, after she'd been handcuffed and placed there by the off-duty officer. Earlier in the evening, she'd been out buying a bottle of wine for a meal with a friend. It was as she walked home later that Couzens struck. He was also filmed in supermarkets buying some of the items he'd use in the kidnap. He drove his young victim more than 80 miles towards the Kent coast, where he raped and then strangled her, dumping her body in this woodland near the town of Ashford. The next day, he's seen buying a petrol can and filling it with the fuel he'd used to burn her body. When police arrested this fellow officer at his Kent home just a few miles from the murder scene, he denied ever having seen Sarah.
Do you know Sarah?
I don't know.
For many in policing, this was the ultimate betrayal. By somebody who actually swore an oath to protect the public to commit such an unthinkable act was just astonishing.
How difficult is it for the police now to persuade women that they are taking issues around women's safety seriously?
We've seen initiatives now to almost increase the police actions against violence against women, and that needs to be done. This would affect trust that some people have in policing. The actions of one person reflects on a whole organisation. So clearly that needs to be now addressed, and the police service as a whole need to look at violence against women and treat it as a priority.
The hired car Couzens used to transport Sarah and mobile phone cell site analysis helped detectives pinpoint his movements on the night of the abduction. He concocted a bizarre story that an Eastern European crime gang forced him to kidnap a woman for them as payment for debts he owed them. But he later admitted kidnap and murder. The area around Clapham Common, where Sarah was last seen, became the focus for public grief and demands that the authorities should do far more to improve women's safety.
It's very sad for me to see women in their 20s who are holding signs saying that they feel unsafe walking the streets at night in 2021.
Essentially, all women feel that could be me. Whatever age of woman, from a young woman to an older woman. And I think we all feel we should feel safer.
This has been an enormously difficult time for the Metropolitan Police, not just because one of their own was responsible for a young woman's murder, but there was criticism too over the handling of the vigilant protests which broke COVID laws and saw violent confrontations. Scotland Yard's Commissioner Cressida Dick said she and fellow officers felt saddened, angry and devastated by the actions of one of their own. But there are too some awkward questions for this force and for Kent Police, as the Independent Office for Police Complaints examines potential failings to properly investigate allegations of indecency against Wayne Couzens, some dating back to 2015. As Wayne Couzens begins life behind bars, the police watchdog will now have to decide whether there were failings around Couzens' previous alleged offences, and whether an earlier intervention would have made any difference in his offending behaviour, which escalated in the most horrific way, ending in the murder of an innocent young woman.